There it sat at the foot of Lapston Hill, overlooking the vast agricultural fields of Emu Plains. Built in 1867, yet seen here around 1910, the Knapsack Gatehouse was the first of the Blue Mountains Railway gatehouses. Here it is again, some years later, missing a few fence palings but still beautiful. Rustic Gothic in style, with its steep gabled roof and sturdy sandstone walls. Decorative coin stones framed its corners and windows, a solid build using local stone. Buildings like this seem as though they should last forever. But do they? First came the road in 1814, dusty, rocky, yet vital, connecting the Nepean Plains to the valleys beyond the mountains. Then, by May 1868, the railway had reached Mount Victoria from the former Penrith terminus. The man tasked with carving a rail corridor across the mountains was John Whitton. Often called the father of New South Wales railways, Whitton arrived in this country with a wealth of experience from railway construction in England. Under his direction, engineers and labourers built the famous zigzags on either side of the mountains, along with bridges, viaducts and the small stone gatekeepers' cottages that dotted the line. Because the railway shared narrow ridges with the existing road, the two crossed paths frequently. Some crossings were bridges, but many were simple level crossings. Each required supervision, so gatekeepers were appointed to manage them. Many of these crossings lay in isolated country, so small stone cottages were constructed to house the gatekeepers and their families. The Knapsack Gatehouse, also known as Gatehouse No. 1, sits about 3 kilometres from where the railway crosses the Nepean River. It was built where the rail line once crossed the road before beginning its climb up Mitchell's Pass. In 1913, when the railway was duplicated and redirected across the new Knapsack Viaduct, an overbridge replaced the level crossing. The gatekeeper's role was made redundant, and the cottage was leased by the Railway Authority as a residence known as Green Gables. It was eventually sold in 1945, but bushfire later gutted the building. Local council acquired the ruined cottage in 1975, with plans to restore it as a tourist information centre and tea room. That plan never eventuated. Walls have since tumbled, and this is the state of it today. Here at Glenbrook stands the pointsman's house, built in the early 1870s as part of the old Lapston zigzag. It replaced an earlier slab hut that had housed the pointsman and his family for years before the cottage later became home to the station master. Its railway life ended in 1926, when a petrol station acquired the site, constructing a large shed around the cottage itself. In the mid-90s, that shed was dismantled and the beautifully restored cottage can be seen again, now used by Ampol as storage. With the railway fully operational in the 1870s, anyone using the road, be it on horseback, driving a cart or moving stock, inevitably had to cross the highway. Steam trains had right-of-way, day and night, so heavy white gates often blocked the road, keeping travellers clear of the track. The gatekeeper's job was to open these gates whenever people wished to cross, providing no train was approaching or according to the timetable. When trains did pass, a red flag was raised. At night, a red signal lamp glowed in the darkness. Life as a gatekeeper was far from glamorous. It was a 24-hour job governed by the strict rhythm of the steam timetable. Gates were to be closed before every train passed. Schedules were basically memorised. It was very much a family affair. Mum, Dad and the kids all chipped in to maintain the gates and the small cottages they called home. Those stone cottages were often damp, sparsely furnished and offered little privacy. A central fireplace helped keep out the bitter mountain winters, though it often filled the rooms with smoke. Many families even grew veggies, even keeping chooks and goats. This old article from October 1880 highlights someone having a whinge about the goats, or mischievous brutes as they call them. It seems almost every gatekeeper, fettler and station master had them, and local residents had enough of these goats eating their shrubs. Not every gatekeeper, however, was diligent in their duties. An article in the Sydney Morning Herald from July 1868 describes how some gatekeepers simply ignored travellers waiting to cross the railway. People were forced to wrestle with the heavy gates themselves while trying to control their horses and carts. One unfortunate man and his 2 horses experienced the danger firsthand near Wasco's. He'd opened one gate and was moving to the second when his horses became frightened by the approach of a train. One horse broke loose. As the man tried to regain control and reach the road, he was struck by the train and killed instantly. The same article also noted that after 9 p.m. the gates were locked, meaning anyone wishing to cross the railway had to alert the gatekeeper, who was often sleeping inside the cottage. Of the 12 original gatehouses in the Blue Mountains, only 6 survive. When the main line was duplicated in 1902, most of the level crossings were replaced with overpasses and underpasses. The Blaxland Gatekeepers Cottage has disappeared, but one of the 2 cottages at Valley Heights still remains, now a private residence. You can see it here in photographs from the late 1870s. The second was demolished during the duplication of the main line. Further up the railway in Springwood stands another surviving cottage. This is Brady's Crossing. It was named after Julia Brady, who served as a gatekeeper there for much of the late 19th century. She became known locally for helping save horses and drays that became stuck on the crossings as trains approached. Today, the cottage forms part of the neighbouring preschool. Another gatekeeper's cottage once stood near Bull's Camp, built in 1866. It remained in use until railway duplication. In 1902 it was sold and later purchased for £10 by Reverend Edward Moore. He had the building dismantled and moved up the mountain to Frederica Street in Lawson, where he rebuilt it and named it Myee. The cottage still stands there today as a private home. Wentworth Falls had its own gatekeeper's cottage, but just like others, it disappeared when the line was duplicated. It used to sit near where the line crossed the Western Road near the present Sorensen Rail Bridge. All that survives of the Katoomba Gatekeeper's cottage are some old photos, though something tells me its stone blocks were likely reused elsewhere. It would be a stunner if it was still sitting at Katoomba Station. Of all the surviving Gatekeepers cottages, there is one that visitors can stay in. At Medlow Bath, just metres from the railway line, sits a beautifully preserved cottage surrounded by lawns and gardens. With 2 bedrooms, a sitting room and kitchen, it now operates as accommodation, costing around $230 a night. Further up in Mount Victoria stands the last of the Blue Mountains cottages. Like many others, it became redundant when the railway was duplicated in 1901. Around the same time, the road beside it was raised to form the present bridge crossing above the railway line. During the 1860s, at least 24 similar gatehouses were built, 15 along the western line and 9 along the southern line. Further south, the design shifts slightly, with brick replacing sandstone. Travel west along the railway and the first surviving cottage appears at Bowenfels. It stands fenced off beside the old station. Windows blocked up, but otherwise in seemingly perfect condition, complete with its slate roof and decorative fretwork. Continue along the rail line and you come across these beauties, the Bowenfels rail viaducts. The lower viaduct, built in 1870 by Whitton and his team, now lies unused. Beside it stands the newer 1921 viaduct, still carrying trains across the valley. Almost 4 kilometres away at Marangaroo stand another pair of viaducts, Whitton's original disused structure and the newer replacement still in service. Less than a kilometre away is the final Gatekeepers cottage I'll be showing you. At one point, this Marangaroo cottage was listed as short-term holiday rental, even including the railway carriage beside it. Today they're privately owned. Further on at Wallerawang there was once another Gatekeepers cottage, though it was sold and moved in 1992. Rumour has it now sits somewhere out in the Conimbla Valley. Most travellers today pass through the Blue Mountains by road or rail without a second thought. But scattered along the old line are these small stone cottages, reminders of the people who once lived beside the tracks, opening gates in all weather, day and night. Their work was ordinary, even mundane, yet essential to the movement of people and goods across the mountains. And though many of the gatehouses have vanished, the few that remain still stand watch beside the rails, quiet witnesses to a slower and very different age of travel.